Erik Prince is the chairman, CEO, and founder of Blackwater USA. He is at the center, and his firm is at the center, of a growing controversy over the role of private security firms working for the United States government in Iraq, where they protect diplomats. On September 16th, Blackwater guards under contract to the State Department allegedly opened fire on unarmed Iraqi civilians, killing 17. The FBI is investigating. The Iraqi government has called the killings murder. Erik Prince has testified that his employees acted appropriately in a very complex war zone, and he awaits the results of the FBI investigation. He joins me now in this conversation, which took place on Friday in Washington, to talk about this subject. In 1997,
that's
you
right.
Created Blackwater.
I got out of the Navy end of '96, and that's right, started Blackwater. At that time, there was, the Special Operations community had been using private facilities since the late '70s. Individual shooting experts, schools, and no one had really done it on a grand scale. At the same time, there was a lot of government facilities that were maybe not the best maintained and not the most user-friendly. And so I patterned something like an individual shooting school, very relevant for operators, for SWAT teams, for military units, on a much bigger scale, in close proximity to one of the largest concentrations of the military, right there in the Norfolk, Virginia area, 3 hours from Fort Bragg and about 3.5 hours from Washington.
It is said that September 11th, 2001 changed everything for Blackwater.
Actually, it started changing when the Cole was attacked in October of 2000. It was a Navy ship that was just about sunk by two fanatics that drove a explosive-laden boat into the side of the ship and just about sank that $1.5 billion vessel, killing 17 Americans. The Navy came to us after that, came to a lot of private shooting schools and asked for help in training Navy sailors for armed sentry and shipboard security and shipboarding, all the sorts of things the Navy needed to do to protect their personnel and their vessels.
When did the contract with the State Department come to go to Iraq?
That would have started in about '05. We first started working in Iraq for the Department of Defense, for the CPA then. Mm-hmm. And then as State Department took over and CPA stood down, that's when it rolled over to State Department work.
And what's the contract about? What is your responsibility? What are the rules? What are the rules of engagement for Blackwater employees in Iraq?
As I testified in Congress, it's called the WPPS, the Worldwide Personal Protective Services Contract. It's almost 1,000 pages long, and a very, very exhaustive detail of the kind of person we have to hire, the resume requirements, the military experience or law enforcement, the psychological checks, the criminal background checks, medical, dental screening, additional training, 160 plus hours in driving, firearms, use of force, cultural sensitivity, full range of training. We have to do an exhaustive training program for each of those persons, so we do the recruiting, vetting, equipping, training, deploying, all back to a State Department standard. It's observed by the State Department. They send their people to observe our training, go through the resumes of even the instructors, and we deploy that person. They then become under the operational control of the U.S. government, in this case of the State Department.
No State Department official that you have been guarding has been killed or wounded.
That is correct.
How is that possible when there's so much death in Iraq?
Our guys do a very good job. They're very careful. It's tough work because they keep having to go back to the same venues again and again, going to various Iraqi ministries, meeting with the State Department people, and meeting with Iraqi officials. There's only so many routes our guys can take, and so a lot of times it's like running a gauntlet, and they have to be very careful. They get a brief every morning before they go on a mission, what the current intelligence is, what the mission for that day is, who's going, where, down the detail down to where each person is going to sit in the vehicle and what their individual responsibilities are. And before they go up the wire, the third part of the brief is the use of force continuum, the State Department dictated defensive rules of engagement.
How many Blackwater employees have been killed?
27 in Iraq, 3 in Afghanistan.
Among those 27 were 4 at Fallujah.
That's right.
How many Iraqi civilians have been killed by Blackwater employees?
That's an unknowable number. Our direction, the mission, the direction we operate under is when attacked, we are to be a defensive screen and to get the persons we're protecting off the X. The X is where someone's decided to attack you and try to kill you that day. That's the ambush point. So we are directed to move them away from the area. We're not there to achieve firepower dominance or anything or to secure the area. We are to move the protected persons away from the area as quickly as possible.
There was this report, I think came out as part of the House committee hearings, that there have been like 125 incidents, and in 80% of them, Blackwater had fired first.
Since 2005, we've done 16,000 PSD missions. That's a time when you take a motorcade outside a secure compound into the red zone, which is where enemies can attack us. In less than 1% of those, there's been any kind of use of firearms. The statistic you're speaking of our guys firing first, that's after they've done a whole bunch of other escalation of force procedures. On the back of each of our vehicles, there's signs in English and Arabic, keep back 100 meters. The same on every U.S. military vehicle there as well, because the constant threat is a suicide car bomber driving into the back of your vehicle, killing everyone there. So signs, hand and arm signals, sirens, air horns, water bottles, pen flares. A pen flare is a signaling device that a pilot would use to signal where he should be rescued. But it's a little pyrotechnic. You fire at someone, it's not lethal, but they definitely know something's coming at them. After that, the men are directed to fire a round from their gun into the engine compartment of the oncoming vehicle. It's not a lethal shot, but it's definitely meant to give the driver of that Iraqi car clear message that something bad is about to happen and that lethal force could be used next.
I want to get at that idea. How do your guys make sure that they don't make a mistake?
Well, we make sure on the front end we do as best as humanly possible to recruit and vet experienced personnel. These are not new guys we're putting out there. These are guys that are typically at least at sergeant level experience out of the U.S. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force. These are proven combat veterans or law enforcement veterans from big city with typically a lot of SWAT team type experience. So they've been in very high stress, very tense situations already. We put them through exhaustive testing under the direction of the State Department, part of that 1,000 pages of direction of that big contract, all the do's and don'ts that we have to provide. And you put them over there, these guys that are proven, already proven in the U.S. military, proven in U.S. law enforcement, you put them over there in what is a challenging situation. Is it possible they make a mistake? Absolutely, they're humans. But you take the best measures you can on the front end to make sure that they have a proven record of good judgment.
Where have they made mistakes?
We know of 2 accidental killings of Iraqi civilians. There was a traffic accident where an individual came out from behind a vehicle, got hit by one of our convoys, absolutely an accidental death. There was another time when there was a shoot to disable about a year and a half ago. The round went through a car and went out the other side. It exited and ricocheted and actually struck a man in the forehead, killing him. Absolutely, those are accidental deaths. Any accidental death is truly a tragedy. That's the last thing our guys want to do. They are professionals. They're there to do a job, trying to help protect the people that are there, sewing the fabric of Iraqi society back together.
How many have been discharged or dismissed by Blackwater?
We fired 120 persons or so over the last 3 years. And that's for everything from having a dirty weapon, riding someone's bike that wasn't theirs, bad attitude. We fired guys for, it appears in the House Committee's report that they were fired for drug use. Well, that's not so accurate. They were fired for using steroids. Some of the guys hit the weights pretty strong, and we don't permit them to use steroids while they're in our employ, so they're fired for that. They're fired for a lot of the small reasons. We find if we toe the line there, they do better in the field, and they tend not to make big errors of judgment as well.